Ethan Cole had lived on the wide plains of Montana for as long as he could remember. The land stretched so far that a person could ride for hours and still feel as if the world had no end. The sky was open, the air smelled of dry grass and warm dust, and the wind carried a gentle song that only people who lived close to nature could understand. For Ethan, this land was both a home and a mirror of his heart, quiet, open, and a little lonely. Every morning, before the sun even touched the horizon, Ethan woke up with the soft sound of his old alarm clock. He didn't need the alarm anymore. His body knew the rhythm of ranch life. Still, the familiar ringing reminded him that another long day was waiting. He pushed off his blanket, put on his worn boots, and stepped outside. The cool morning air welcomed him like an old friend. His horse, Jasper, stood near the fence, snorting softly as if greeting him. Jasper had been with him for years, and the two understood each other without many words. Ethan fed him, brushed his coat, and whispered, "Another day, buddy." It was a simple routine, but one that kept Ethan grounded. The ranch had once been lively. Years ago, it echoed with voices, his parents laughing in the kitchen, his sister running around the yard, his younger brother chasing chickens and tripping over everything. Ethan used to love those days, but life changed slowly and quietly. His parents moved to a smaller town after his father's health began to weaken. His sister got married and settled on the coast. His brother joined a construction team in another state. Everyone found their path, and Ethan stayed behind, choosing the ranch because he believed it needed him. Or maybe, deep down, he needed it. There was one more person who used to be part of his life, someone who once meant the world to him. Her name was Lily. Ethan and Lily had grown up together, known each other's secrets, dreams, and fears. Everyone expected them to marry someday. Ethan expected it too. But life rarely follows the plans we imagine. Lily received a job offer in a distant city, something she had always dreamed of. She asked Ethan to move with her, but Ethan felt bound to the ranch, to his responsibilities, and to the land that raised him. They tried to stay connected, but distance has a way of loosening even the strongest knots. Eventually, Lily moved on. Ethan didn't blame her, but the loss left a quiet ache inside him. Since then, Ethan found comfort only in work. He repaired fences, checked the cattle, cleaned the barn, and fixed anything that seemed even a little out of place. Busy hands kept him from thinking too much. Still, loneliness had a way of finding him at the quietest moments, during the final minutes of sunset when the sky turned orange and gold, or late at night when he sat on the porch with a cup of coffee and no one beside him. He wasn't unhappy, but he wasn't fully alive either. He was just existing. As each year passed, Ethan visited town only when he needed supplies. The people there knew him as the polite cowboy who didn't talk much. Some tried to make conversation, but Ethan always kept things brief. He didn't mean to be distant, he just didn't know how to open up anymore. Conversations felt like doors he didn't have the strength to walk through. One day, while picking up tools from the hardware store, Ethan overheard a group of men talking excitedly about the annual county fair. The fair was a big event for the small towns scattered across the area. People came from all over: farmers, artists, musicians, travelers, and even visitors from distant regions who carried unique traditions. Children loved the rides, adults loved the food stalls, and everyone enjoyed the music and dancing under the string lights that brightened the fairgrounds at night. Ethan hadn't gone to the fair in years. The last time he attended was with Lily. They had eaten fresh corn, shared a soft pretzel, and danced on the dusty ground while a country band played cheerful tunes. Remembering it always made his heart feel heavy. He planned to leave the store quickly, but one of the men mentioned something unusual. "You hear about that traveling wedding tradition returning this year?" the man said. "People from that mountain region, the ones who have those special cultural brides and grooms?" Ethan paused without meaning to. He had heard stories about them long ago. In certain places far from the cities, there were communities where men and women took vows to help strangers who felt lost or lonely. These people, often called symbolic brides or symbolic grooms, offered emotional support, companionship, and guidance to those who needed a fresh start. They weren't real brides or spouses in the legal sense. Their role was more like a healer of hearts. Someone who promised loyalty, honesty, and unconditional support for a short period. They were kind-hearted people who believed that every soul deserved understanding. Ethan had always thought the tradition was more of a romantic story than a real practice. But the way the men spoke made it sound real. "Yeah," another man said. "They're setting up a tent this year. Folks say the brides and grooms are chosen because they have big hearts and strong spirits. They help people find direction. Ain't it something?" Ethan left the store with the tools he needed. But the conversation stayed with him. He didn't believe in magical solutions. He didn't expect anyone to walk into his life and chase away years of quiet loneliness. Still, the idea interested him not because he hoped to meet someone, but because he wondered what kind of people dedicated their lives to helping strangers. That evening, as he sat on his porch watching the sun melt into the horizon, Ethan thought about the fair. Jasper grazed nearby, and the soft bell on the horse's halter chimed with every movement. The air was calm, and the sky shifted from orange to soft purple. Ethan took a sip of his coffee and sighed. He hadn't left the ranch for anything fun in years. Maybe attending the fair would be good. Maybe seeing people laugh and live would remind him of something he had forgotten. After a long moment of hesitation, he made a small decision, one that didn't seem important, but one that would change the course of his life more than he realized. He would go to the fair. The next afternoon, Ethan cleaned himself up better than usual. He shaved, wore a clean shirt, and polished his boots. Jasper stood ready. Sensing something unusual about the day, Ethan saddled him up and began the ride toward the fairgrounds. The path was familiar, but his heart felt strangely unsettled, almost nervous. He didn't know why. When he reached the fair, laughter and music filled the air instantly. The smell of sweet cotton candy mixed with grilled corn made him feel both nostalgic and slightly out of place. Families walked around with colorful balloons, and children ran from stall to stall with bright smiles. Ethan walked slowly, taking everything in. He didn't speak to anyone. He simply observed. Then his eyes caught a large white tent in the distance, decorated with ribbons and flowers. People stood around it, whispering, smiling, and watching with quiet respect. It was the tent of the symbolic brides and grooms. Ethan hesitated. He wasn't sure why he walked toward it, but his feet moved on their own. He didn't expect anything. He didn't want anything. But as he stepped closer, he saw a tall woman standing near the entrance, speaking kindly to an elderly couple. She had a warm smile, strong presence, and gentle eyes that seemed to understand people without them saying a word. He didn't know it yet, but this moment was the beginning, the moment he saw Mara, the giant bride. And though Ethan didn't believe in destiny, something deep inside him whispered that his quiet life was about to change forever. Mara had always stood out wherever she went, not only because of her height but because of the calm strength she carried within her. People called her the Giant Bride, a nickname that began in her mountain community, where symbolic brides and grooms practiced an old tradition of offering support, comfort, and guidance to those who had lost their way in life. The title was not meant to describe her size alone, but her heart, a heart that seemed large enough to carry the worries of others without ever growing tired. Mara grew up in a small village where everyone believed in helping strangers the way they helped their own family. From a young age, she had watched her elders talk to troubled travelers, listen to lonely souls, and give comfort to people who felt forgotten. The symbolic brides and grooms were not married to anyone in a legal way. Instead, they served as companions during emotional storms. They gave loyalty and support, and when the person healed enough to move forward, they stepped back with grace. It was a calling, not a job. When Mara turned 25, the elders recognized her strong spirit and soft voice qualities that reminded them of the best symbolic brides from the past. She was officially welcomed into the tradition. From that day, she promised to help anyone who needed a steady presence. Her vow was simple but powerful. Day or night, I'll do anything to guide a lonely soul back to hope. It didn't mean she solved every problem or made grand promises. It meant she would listen, understand, encourage, and stand beside anyone who felt lost. And she meant every word. She traveled with her community's group, moving from region to region, attending fairs, festivals, and gatherings where people often came seeking advice or emotional support. Most people approached them out of curiosity, but some came with quiet hearts, heavy with unspoken burdens. On the day Ethan arrived at the fair, Mara was helping an elderly couple who felt uncertain about how to reconnect with their grown child. She listened with patience, offering kind suggestions that didn't judge but gently encouraged. Her voice stayed calm, and her smile never left her face. That was the moment Ethan saw her for the first time. She didn't notice him right away. Ethan stood at a distance, almost hidden behind a group of visitors. He wasn't sure why he was staring. Maybe it was her presence, calm, confident, and warm in a way that made strangers feel safe. Maybe it was the way she listened, as if every word mattered. Something about her drew him in, though he couldn't explain it. The elderly couple thanked her and walked away, leaving Mara alone for a moment. She turned slightly, and her eyes met Ethan's. He quickly looked away, but not fast enough to hide the surprise in his expression. Mara tilted her head curiously. She had seen that look many times, the look of someone who wasn't searching for help, yet needed it more than anyone else. Instead of calling to him or stepping forward, she simply smiled and waited. Mara believed that people should approach in their own time. Pushing someone too quickly could make them run away. Ethan took a slow breath. Part of him wanted to turn around and leave. He wasn't used to being noticed. But another part, small but stubborn, encouraged him to step closer. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was loneliness. Maybe it was something he didn't understand yet. He approached the tent like a man approaching a new world. When he finally stood in front of Mara, she greeted him with a gentle nod. "Hello," she said softly. "Are you visiting, or did you come looking for something special?" Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. I'm just looking around." Mara smiled warmly. "There's no rush here. You can stay as long as you like." Ethan didn't know what else to say, so he simply nodded. Mara studied him not in a judging way but with quiet curiosity. She could see the tiredness in his eyes, the kind that didn't come from lack of sleep but from carrying too much silence for too long. "Do you live nearby?" she asked gently. "On a ranch," he replied. "A little outside town. Ranch life is hard-working life," she said. "Takes a strong heart." Ethan shrugged. "It's what I know. And yet," she added softly, "you seem like someone who carries more than the ranch on his shoulders." The words surprised him. He looked away, unsure how she had seen so much so quickly. Mara didn't push. She continued with a reassuring tone. "You don't have to tell me anything, but if you ever feel like talking, I'm here." They stood in silence for a moment. Ethan wasn't used to people speaking to him in such a gentle manner. Most conversations in his life were practical, discussing cattle, land, or weather. Mara's words felt different. They felt personal, yet safe. He tried to change the subject. "What exactly do you do here?" Mara smiled again. "We are symbolic brides and grooms. We help people who feel alone or unsure about their life. Some people want guidance. Some want someone to talk to. Some want a companion for a little while. We stand beside them until they feel strong again." "That's unusual," Ethan said. "It is," she admitted. "But it's a beautiful tradition. Many people just need a place to rest their heart." "And you're one of them?" he asked, still trying to understand. "Yes," she said proudly. "It is my calling. I believe every person deserves someone who will listen without judgment." Her sincerity surprised him. She didn't sound like someone reciting a duty. She sounded like someone who truly believed in her purpose. "You don't even know me," Ethan said quietly. "I don't need to know you yet," Mara replied, "but I can see kindness in your eyes, and I can see you've been carrying a quiet sadness for a long time." Ethan's breath caught slightly. No one had spoken to him like that in years. Mara took a step closer, though still keeping a respectful distance. "If you allow me, I'd like to be someone who helps you understand your heart better. Day or night, I'll do anything to support someone who feels alone." Ethan lowered his gaze. The phrase, "I'll do anything," didn't sound dramatic or exaggerated when she said it. It sounded honest. Real. A promise made with sincerity. "I don't know if I'm someone who needs that," he said. "That's all right," Mara replied gently. "Many people don't know at first. You're welcome to walk away. And nothing changes. But if you choose to stay, I'll walk with you for as long as you need." Ethan felt the weight of her words. No pressure. No demands. Just an open door. He didn't know why, but he asked, "Would you like to see the ranch? It's quiet there. Maybe you'd understand me better if you saw it." Mara's eyes brightened. "I would be honored." Ethan nodded slowly, surprised by his own courage. He wasn't a man who invited people into his life casually, but something about Mara felt natural, peaceful, and trustworthy. Mara turned to one of her fellow symbolic brides and let them know she would be gone for a few hours. They smiled at her knowingly, as if they understood something she didn't say. She looked back at Ethan. "Lead the way." As they walked side by side away from the fair, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, a small spark of connection. A gentle warmth inside his chest, something opening slowly, like a flower that hadn't seen sunlight in years. Mara didn't speak much on the walk. She observed the land, the sky, and the soft dust rising with every step. She admired the peace of the countryside, the quiet music of nature, and the steady rhythm of Ethan's footsteps beside hers. Ethan watched her from the corner of his eye. She walked confidently, but with a softness that balanced her strength. The title Giant Bride made perfect sense now, not because of her appearance alone, but because she carried herself like someone who could take on the emotional storms of others without fear. When the ranch finally came into view, Ethan felt a strange mix of nervousness and hope. It had been years since he invited anyone into this space. But Mara's presence made it feel right, as if she belonged at his side even if only for a short time. As they stepped through the wooden gate, Ethan realized that this moment marked the first real change in his life in years. He didn't know where it would lead. He only knew that the giant bride had made a promise, and something deep inside him believed her. Ethan led Mara through the wooden gate of his ranch, feeling a strange nervousness rise in his chest. It had been years since he invited anyone into this space. The ranch was not fancy, but it was honest, wide-open fields. A small house built with weathered wood. A barn standing proudly, even after years of storms. And quiet beauty in every direction. Mara looked around with wide eyes, taking everything in with deep respect, as if the land itself deserved a moment of silence. "It's peaceful here," she said softly. Ethan nodded. "It's all I know. Sometimes too quiet, I guess," Mara smiled. "Quiet can heal. Quiet can also hurt. It depends on the heart that listens to it." Ethan didn't answer, but her words landed gently inside him. Jasper trotted over, curious about the new visitor. Mara laughed warmly. "Well, hello there." She held out her hand and Jasper nudged it, accepting her instantly. Ethan raised an eyebrow, surprised. "He doesn't trust strangers quickly," he said. "Animals feel emotions faster than humans," she replied. "Maybe he senses you're comfortable with me." Ethan felt heat rise on his neck. He wasn't sure if he was comfortable or simply drawn to her calm presence. She didn't try to impress him, didn't try to act overly kind, and didn't look at him the way people usually did, half curious, half confused. She looked at him as if he mattered. They walked around the ranch. Mara asked thoughtful questions about the fields, the cattle, and how Ethan managed everything alone. Ethan found himself talking more openly than he expected. "It's not as hard as people think," he said. "And who tells you what you need?" Mara asked gently. Ethan stopped walking. He didn't have an answer. Mara didn't push him. She simply moved toward the barn and touched the wooden door. "This place carries history," she said. "I can feel it." "Yeah," Ethan replied. "My father built the barn with his own hands. I helped when I was a kid." She smiled at him. "Then this ranch has a part of you in every corner." A soft silence fell between them, not awkward, but comforting. Then Ethan suggested showing her the horses. Mara eagerly agreed. Together, they walked inside the barn where the warm scent of hay filled the air. She watched Ethan feed Jasper and check his hooves. "You care for him like he's family," she observed. "He is family," Ethan said. "He's been with me through everything." Mara nodded. "Everyone deserves someone like that." Ethan caught the deeper meaning in her words. She wasn't talking about horses anymore. She was talking about people, about him. They spent the next hour fixing small things around the ranch. Ethan repaired a loose gate, while Mara held the wood steady. They worked in easy silence, like two people who had known each other for years rather than hours. Mara wasn't afraid of hard tasks. She lifted heavy boards, carried buckets of water, and swept dust without being asked. Ethan noticed how effortless her strength seemed, not just physical strength but emotional steadiness. At one point, Ethan stopped and watched her. Mara moved with purpose, with kindness, with a quiet confidence that filled the space around her. She wasn't trying to impress him. Yet she did. "You don't have to help with everything," Ethan said. Mara looked up with a soft smile. "I like helping." "Most people don't," he replied. "I'm not most people," she answered gently. They both knew how true that was. Later that afternoon, a sudden wind blew across the fields, carrying dark clouds with it. Ethan glanced at the sky. "Storm's coming faster than I thought. I need to bring the cattle closer before the rain hits." "Then let me help," Mara said without hesitation. Ethan hesitated. "It's not easy work." "I didn't come here to watch from the side," she replied calmly. "I came to walk with you." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. They moved quickly toward the open field where the cattle grazed. The wind grew stronger. A light drizzle began to fall. Ethan whistled to guide the animals, and Mara helped by walking on the other side, gently urging them toward the shelter area. She followed Ethan's signals easily, understanding what needed to be done without needing long explanations. "You're good at this," Ethan said, almost surprised. "I learn fast," she said with a grin. "And I trust your lead." Her words warmed him more than he expected. By the time the cattle were safe, the rain had turned into a steady shower. Ethan wiped water from his face. Mara pushed her wet hair back and laughed. That was refreshing. Ethan stared at her in amazement. Most people complained about storms. Mara treated it like a simple adventure. "Let's get inside," Ethan said. "You'll get cold." "Are you sure you're not the one worried about yourself?" she teased lightly. Ethan shook his head, trying not to smile. He hadn't teased or joked with anyone in years. But with her, everything felt easier. Natural. Inside the house, Ethan offered her a towel, and she accepted it gratefully. The house was small but warm, with wooden shelves, a stone fireplace, and handmade decorations his mother had crafted long ago. Mara's eyes softened as she looked around. "This place feels lived in," she said. "Loved." Ethan swallowed. "I try." "You succeed," she replied gently. He made them warm tea. They sat near the window, watching the rain fall on the fields. Mara took a sip of her tea and relaxed into the chair. "Your ranch is beautiful," she said. "It's quiet," Ethan replied. "Quiet is beautiful when your heart is ready to hear it," she said. Ethan looked at her. "And what if the heart isn't ready?" "Then someone needs to help it find its way," she answered softly. Her tone was sincere, not poetic. She wasn't trying to sound wise, she simply spoke from her soul. Ethan took a slow breath. "Why do you do this? Why choose this kind of life?" "For the same reason you care for this land," she said. "It feels right. I want people to feel supported, to feel seen, to feel understood. Many people carry heavy stories they never speak about. I want to lighten those stories if I can." Ethan looked down at his hands. "I don't know how to talk about my story." "You don't have to," Mara replied. "Not until you want to." Her patience surprised him again. She didn't push or insist. She didn't assume. She simply stayed present. The storm continued outside, but inside the house, a quiet warmth filled the room. Ethan felt something shift inside him. Something slow, steady, and gentle. He wasn't used to opening his heart, but Mara didn't ask him to. She just created a space where opening up felt possible. After a long silence, Ethan spoke without planning to. I used to have someone important. But life pulled us apart. Mara listened quietly. She wanted a life in the city, he continued. I wanted to stay here. We couldn't find a path together. That must have been painful, Mara said softly. It was, Ethan admitted. But I don't blame her. And you stayed here? Alone? She asked. He nodded. It felt like the only thing I knew how to do. Mara's voice dropped gently. Sometimes we stay in a place because it feels safe, not because it makes us happy. Ethan looked out the window. Maybe. She rested her hands on her lap. Ethan, you're not broken. You're just quiet. There's a difference. Her words touched something deep inside him. He hadn't realized how much he needed to hear them. The rain eventually softened. The clouds drifted. The sky brightened. But neither of them rushed to stand. They simply stayed there, sharing silence as if it were a language they both understood. Mara eventually rose from her chair. Thank you for showing me your world today. Ethan stood too. Thank you for being part of it. She smiled, warm and deep. We'll face whatever comes next together. Day or night, I meant what I said. Ethan believed her, more than he believed anything in years. As the sun set behind the clouds, Ethan walked her back toward the fairgrounds. But something was different now. Their steps were slower. Their shoulders almost touched. The space between them felt full of unspoken hope. Ethan didn't know what the future held. But he knew this Mara wasn't just passing through. She was changing things inside him. Gently, patiently, fearlessly. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan felt something warm growing in his heart. Something that felt a lot like the beginning of healing. The next morning began with soft light rising over the horizon, spreading gentle gold across Ethan's ranch. The storm from the previous day had washed the land clean, leaving a fresh scent in the air. The birds seemed livelier, the fields brighter, and even the wind softer. Ethan stepped outside with a quiet feeling in his chest, something warm, something different. He didn't need to guess what it was. It was the thought of Mara. She had stayed at the fairgrounds for the night, as her group always did. But the memory of her calm smile and comforting presence had lingered with Ethan long after he walked home. He didn't sleep immediately. Instead, he sat near his window for a long time, thinking about everything she had said, everything she understood without needing him to explain, and everything she brought into his silent world. Morning felt new, as if someone had gently shifted the weight inside his heart. Ethan fed Jasper, checked the fences, and watered the animals. Normally, these tasks filled his whole day with quiet routine, but today, they felt lighter. He found himself glancing down the dirt road now and then, wondering if Mara might walk toward the ranch. By noon, he decided to visit the fairgrounds again. He didn't want to appear too eager, but something inside him urged him forward. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe hope. Maybe something deeper that he wasn't ready to name. When he reached the fair, people were already gathering for the day's events. Children laughed as they ran among the colorful stalls. Vendors shouted friendly greetings. Musicians tuned their instruments, and the air carried the smell of roasted corn and sweet pastries. But Ethan didn't notice most of it. His eyes searched for the white tent. He spotted it instantly. Mara was standing outside, speaking to a young girl who looked unsure about something. Mara knelt to the girl's level, smiling warmly until the child's eyes brightened. When the girl finally ran back to her family, Mara stood and turned and saw Ethan. Her face lit up in a gentle, welcoming way, as if she had been hoping to see him too. You came back, she said softly. Ethan nodded. I thought maybe we could talk more. I'd like that, she replied. She walked beside him, away from the crowd, toward a quieter, grassy area near the edge of the fairgrounds. They sat on a small wooden bench under a large tree that offered cool shade. The wind moved the leaves above them, and the sound was calm, almost musical. Ethan looked around before speaking. I did a lot of thinking last night. Mara turned toward him, her expression patient and open. Thinking can be good. Or heavy. Or both. Both, Ethan admitted. You said some things yesterday that I didn't expect. Things that made me realize how long I've been living in silence. Mara listened with soft eyes. I've been here all these years, he continued, believing that work was enough, believing that loneliness was a normal part of life, believing that I didn't need help or company. And now? And now I don't know, Ethan said with honesty. But I know I feel different. Mara didn't rush to fill the silence. She let Ethan's words settle. You know, she said after a moment, many people think strength means doing everything alone. But true strength is knowing when to let someone stand beside you. Ethan took a deep breath. You stood beside me yesterday. I didn't expect that. And it helped. That's what I vowed to do, Mara said with a soft smile. Day or night, I want to support those who feel alone. But support only works if the person accepts it. I do, Ethan said quietly. Mara's smile deepened, warm and sincere. They talked for a long time about small things, big things, hopes, fears, childhood memories, and stories they had never shared with anyone. Ethan found himself opening up more than he ever imagined he could. Mara didn't judge. She didn't give complicated advice. She simply listened in a way that made every word feel safe. Eventually, Mara asked if she could visit the ranch again later. Ethan agreed immediately. And together, they walked through the fields once more. As they walked, Ethan noticed little details he had never appreciated: the soft colors of the wildflowers, the gentle curve of the hills, the peaceful movement of the clouds. Everything felt clearer with Mara beside him. Her presence didn't distract him. It made him more aware of the beauty around him. When they reached the ranch house, Mara paused at the porch. You live in a beautiful place, she said. It didn't feel beautiful before, Ethan replied honestly. Not until yesterday. Mara looked at him with tenderness. Places change when our hearts begin to heal. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. But he felt something shift inside him, something like gratitude mixed with hope. They worked together again that afternoon. They fixed small things around the ranch, talked, laughed, and enjoyed the quiet moments in between. Mara blended into the rhythm of ranch life so naturally that it felt as if she had always been there. She helped Ethan repair a fence, carried bales of hay with surprising ease, and even sang softly while sweeping the barn floor. Her voice was gentle, almost soothing, like a warm breeze. You make everything feel easier, Ethan said. I'm not here to change your life, she replied. I'm only here to remind you how strong you already are. But you are changing it, he said quietly. You're reminding me of things I forgot. How to talk. How to feel. How to breathe without heaviness. Mara looked at him with soft surprise. Sometimes the right companion can unlock doors that have been closed for too long. Ethan lowered his gaze, then looked into her eyes with quiet courage. I want you to stay longer. Not because I need help, but because I like having you here. Mara's expression softened even more. I would be honored to stay. Ethan exhaled slowly, relieved and grateful. They walked to the porch, watching the sky turn golden as the sun neared the horizon. Mara sat beside him, her hands resting calmly on her lap. You know, Mara said gently, when I said, I'll do anything, I didn't mean perfect answers or grand promises. I meant loyalty, support, a steady presence, someone who will walk beside you through quiet days and uncertain ones. Ethan nodded. That's more than enough. And you, she continued softly, have given me something too. What? He asked, surprised. A place where my heart feels peaceful, she said. A place where my vow feels meaningful. A place where I'm not just helping someone. I'm sharing life with someone. Ethan felt warmth spread through him at her words. As evening settled over the land, the ranch glowed under the soft light. The breeze carried the scent of grass and earth, and crickets began their nightly song. Ethan and Mara sat quietly, watching the last light fade. "Will you stay?" Ethan asked again, his voice low but steady. "Not just for today. Not just to help. But because it feels right." Mara looked at him with deep understanding. "Yes," she said softly. "I'll stay." Ethan smiled an honest, heartfelt smile that he hadn't felt in years. From that day forward, Mara became part of the ranch, not as a symbolic bride alone, but as someone who brought warmth into every corner of Ethan's life. She helped with work, shared meals, told stories of her travels, and listened to Ethan's dreams with genuine interest. Together they found balance, her steady heart, and his quiet soul fitting together like two pieces of a forgotten puzzle. Ethan was no longer lonely. Mara was no longer wandering. And the ranch, once silent and still, became a place filled with laughter, warmth, and gentle companionship. In the quiet moments at sunset, when the fields glowed and the sky softened into shades of gold and purple, Ethan often thought about how everything changed because of one sincere promise. A promise made softly, but with a heart strong enough to hold it. "Day or night," Mara had said, "I'll do anything." And she meant every word, not with grand gestures, but with kindness, understanding, and presence. Sometimes, Ethan realized, a single honest promise is all it takes to rebuild an entire life.